All right, Dallas Cowboys and the Miami Dolphins game everybody's going to pay very, very, very close attention to. Adam, this is the most interesting game of the week, most interesting handicap of the week, right? Because here we are. Dolphins, answer us the question, can you win a big game against a good team? Cowboys, answer us the question, can you win a game on the road outdoors against a good team? Because here's the thing, you're probably going to have to do that in the playoffs. So here you go. This is at least a test for you here against Miami. Everything tells me that Tyreek Hill is going to play in this game. Like, I don't think Tyreek Hill is going to miss this one. I think Tyreek Hill actually sat out last week because he didn't want to do anything to keep him out of having to play in this game. So 1.5 in favor of the Dolphins, 50 to 50.5 is your total. What say you, Adam?
Instinctually here and with the numbers, Dolphins and under. And we're too high on the point scoring ability of the Dallas Cowboys with what we saw last week. And I am perfectly comfortable leaning in, maybe not as hard as Stephen A did laughing at the Cowboys, but I have not been a Cowboys backer this entire season. And last week goes to show why. Now, on the other side of this, you mentioned Tyreek Hill, but I think you have to go deeper than that, because other positive news out of the injury report is basically every other piece of positive news you could want out of the injury report for the Miami Dolphins. Teron Armstead is back at practice. Xavier Howard is back at practice. Devin Achane is back at practice. Every guy that you would look at and say, man, okay, they really need to be able to hold up against pressure. Armstead. They really need to be able to cover those receivers. Xavier Howard. They really need to have some game-breaking ability. Devin Achane, they're all in there. Now, I understand that what we saw out of Miami against Tennessee is enough to give everybody some level of concern. But to me, you take what is an offense that is entirely capable of going out there and dictating everything to Dallas because of the fact that Dallas needs to get pressure, and I think Tua is going to be able to get the ball out quickly enough that it's not going to matter. And the Miami defense, granted the fact that they have not been the same since Jalen Phillips went out, still by second half of the season numbers, this is the number one non-garbage time defense by EPA, which is not something I would have expected before I looked the stats up. I understand that everyone's going to be saying to themselves, oh yeah, Dallas, bad week, time to bounce back. This ain't the team and this ain't the matchup.
So, Steven, if I look at this, I actually think it was good for this offense last week that Tyreek sat out, because then it was like the reminder of how good Jalen Waddle is. It's like you sit there and you look and it's like, oh, we have this other guy with great speed and is awesome catching the ball and can go, take things to the house and whatever. And you see him go out last week, go for 142 yards against the Jets, I might add, on 8 receptions in this thing. Now you get Tyreek back, and I think that now you don't have to rely quite as much on Tyreek. Waddle can do his thing. The Cowboys, man, you look and they're weak up front, and I'll tell you this, it's kind of under the radar because all we think about is how awesome that Tua and Tyreek have been all year long, and we don't even realize that the Dolphins are one of the most efficient rushing offenses in all the NFL as well. It wouldn't surprise me if they bullied the Cowboys here. Like McDaniel's a sharp dude, man. Like McDaniel's smart. Like, yeah, we got these toys, but are the toys going to win the game, or is it let's just run it down their throat just like the Bills did? Maybe he goes that route. I think the Dolphins have multiple ways to get this done.
I will concede the coaching sharpness edge here clearly to Miami over Dallas. I am still concerned about how healthy this offensive line is for the Dolphins. I know Adam mentioned Teron Armstead, but this is still a unit with one of their guards and their starting center on IR. On top of that, their backup center, their right guard, their right tackle, all DMPs. Their other tackle, Eichenberg, is a center. He was limited. So the center was limited this week, the backup center, right guard, right tackle, both DMPs this week. I have not seen any Thursday updates on that. Have you, Adam?
I haven't, but I guess I would counter that to say, did it matter last week?
Not against the Jets.
I mean, the Jets, who we've thought about as a top 8-9 defense throughout the season, right? Like, I'm just saying it wasn't against nobody last week, even if Dallas's pass rush is better.
Yeah, I mean, I got to see if 3/5 of their offensive line is out or not playing when they're already on backups for a lot of it. That's going to be a problem for me in this game, because I still don't think if Tyreek Hill plays, he's going to be near 100%. May not matter. He's Tyreek Hill. But this is still the number one defense by pass rush win rate for the Cowboys, top 5 in sack percentage. You saw what happened with Miami against Tennessee when they were getting pressured and having to get rid of the ball, and Tua was sacked 5 times. Now, they should have won the game. They're up 14 with like 3 minutes left. I get that. But the point is that the protection was an issue in that game, even though they got away with it against an inferior opponent. To me, we also need to talk about the Dallas offense against this Miami defense, because the Dolphins defense has gotten a lot of love. They're pretty high in the advanced metrics. They're number one in a lot of those metrics since Jalen Ramsey came back, but they haven't played anybody. I mean, the quarterbacks they've faced since Jalen Ramsey came back, Mac Jones, Patrick Mahomes, where they got down 21-0, Aiden O'Connell, Tim Boyle, where they had a fail Mary to help boost their defensive EPA in that game, Sam Howell, Will Levis, and then a combination of Zach Wilson and Trevor Siemian. So I am not convinced whatsoever that Dallas's offense is going to struggle to move the ball in this game, because I think those metrics are very inflated based on inferior opponents and inferior offenses that they played. So I took plus money on the Cowboys money line in this game, mostly because I'm not sure how healthy this offensive line is going to be for Miami. And they got to show me that they can beat a legitimate team. Like, they got to show. I at least know the Cowboys should have beaten the Eagles twice, did beat them once in dominant fashion. I kind of want to give them a pass for Buffalo last week, because it sounds like the Jay Glazer came out and said that a ton of their players were sick and playing through the flu last week. But I will also, like, this is the point that you guys should be driving home as well if you want to be on Miami. If Hankins doesn't play for Dallas, I don't know how they're stopping the run for Miami. And so it might be like week on week here if the O-line's bad. But that's another matchup potentially advantage here too, Matt.
I'll tell you a prop that I don't normally play, fellas, but over 1.5 field goals for Brandon Aubrey, who, by the way, can like make it from like 97 yards, is like, I mean, over 1.5. I don't know if you guys know how many field goals he's missed this year. 0. He's 31 for 31 on the season, and they will like let him go from 60 like it's nobody's business. And so it's like, it's only minus 120. Maybe that's just a fun one to add into a same game parlay or something like that, or whatever, just to kind of boost your odds up there or something like that. But I don't normally handicap kicking at them, but if they're going to like let a dude go from 58 plus multiple times in a game and he's perfect on the season, I'll throw that in a same game parlay.
Yeah, as a leg, I don't mind it. I wouldn't want it to be the only thing I was holding on this game. I'll say back to what Steven was saying. The lack of protection potentially for Tua, we can't look too far into that Tennessee game. They were up 28-14, should have covered that game, let alone not lose it at the end. And also, when we look at what that means to Tua, I think it just means that Mike McDaniel knows if that offensive line is not healthy, ball's coming out. And ball's coming out as quickly as possible, or they're running, as Matt mentioned, or maybe they're going to that potential strength. So if you want to take Dallas's full season in totality and say that's, where you play, where you play money line on them, I get it. I understand, where you're coming from. It feels to me like we're hoping certain things for the Cowboys play out in order to get there, though.
Yeah, the Cowboys for me are that team that, like, I get it. You can only play who's put in front of you, right? And like, don't get me wrong, that was a big win against the Eagles. But outside of that, I mean, what are we hanging our hat on here, right? I mean, it's a bunch of losses to get. It's a loss to the 49ers, a loss to the Eagles the first time, a loss to the Bills, and then like, what do we like about this team? What are their signature win? What is the outside of that Eagles team? Like, where are their other wins? It's Panthers and Commanders and Giants and Jets and Giants again and Patriots. I mean, it's just
what are we like if we're making this argument, what are we hanging our hat on with the Dolphins that they beat the crap out of a bunch of bad teams and beat Justin Herbert in week 1? Like, it's the same thing. These two teams are almost mirror images of each other.
No, but I'm saying if we're going off of this, like, oh, they get so much pressure and they do this, and we could think that they can move the ball, and why wouldn't they be able to move the ball? Well, they didn't move the ball in the good teams they played. So, like, I mean, what
neither did Miami.
What are we like going with here?
Okay, Miami has played some tough teams, and I think that we could see that Miami hasn't gotten blown off the field against the tough teams the way that Dallas has. And even in a game where Dallas looked great offensively, right? The Dak MVP game is the Seattle game. They gave up 35 to a Seattle team that we can't really point to and say, we believe this is a good team. So I just think we could probably spend the rest of this podcast going back and forth over the who is Dallas played and who is Miami played.
Fascinating game.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I mean, I think our whole mindset is changed if they don't have that complete just brain fart against the Titans, right? Like, I think our whole image of this team is like completely different. But it is what it happened. So I mean, it's not to say that it can't happen again.